Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mysterious Pals Show, a show about pals, history, and mysteries. My name is Chris, and I'm joined here by my best pal, Jordan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Great. I'm happy to be here. I can't wait to see what you have today. And on that subject, today is going to be a Jordan episode. He's going to be presenting a mystery to us. And what do you have for us today?
Today we're going to be talking about Bhangarh Fort. It's a fort in northern India. We're going to ask what happened to this fort.
What happened at Bhangarh Fort?
Yes.
Okay. Bhangarh Fort, northern India.
Yeah, near the border of Pakistan.
And what, I guess you're going to tell me what kind of time period are we talking about here? When was this?
So I came across this after we did our first episode, which you all should check out, that Chris led about Henry Avery, the famous pirate. I was doing some research afterwards. I didn't know too much about this region, the subcontinent of India during this time. So I was looking up some stuff about the Mughal Empire, and I came across this abandoned fort. And no one knows what happened to the people. No one knows what happened to the fort. So I thought that was kind of fascinating.
Mughal, not Mogul.
Mughal, yeah.
Okay.
Did I say Mogul?
No, I got it. Okay. I said it the last episode the whole entire time.
It's hard, man. It's
Mogul,
a different language.
Mogul.
It's fine.
Mughal.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, there was a fort there that was pretty, that was flourishing during this time. It's pretty neat. But what happened was people just disappeared and the fort kind of fell apart. So there's always mystery around what happened to this particular site.
So what type of fort are we talking about?
This fort was built for Madho Singh. He's the second son of Bhagwan Das. He was a ruler of Amber, which is kind of modern day Rajasthan.
So Amber was like the kingdom.
Yeah, well, so during this time, the Mughal Empire is basically controlling all of India. But even though they're Muslim, they kind of let people who were already there, they were Hindu, other little, like, I don't want to say fiefdoms, but they kind of let them do their own thing as long as they paid homage to this Muslim emperor. So the Muslim Empire kind of let the Hindus keep doing what they're doing as long as they kind of work some kind of thing out where, like, you help me out, I'll help you out kind of thing. So they're kind of left, for the most part, to their own devices. But so this was a primarily Hindu site where a lot of temples were built for Hindu gods and goddesses. At this particular site, there were homes. There's a lot of entertainment here. It wasn't just a particular fort that you would picture like in the Middle Ages, where just like we're fortified, we're locked in. But there's an actual town in this area. Yeah,
I always feel like when you talk about like castles and forts, especially from the medieval times and that era, they're always like, you think it's always this like, the Lord of the Rings style, like giant spires and stuff. And like, and then you really actually look at like what actual forts look like. They were, or these castles, what they called them, and forts at this time, it was kind of like really kind of boring.
Sparse,
and
boring. Yeah.
And because it was needed for one specific reason. Also, technology wasn't there to build these giant things.
Yeah. And this was like mostly stone and brick, but they did have a lot of nice amenities. Like they did have people living there at that site around like 1720-ish. They probably had about close to 10,000 people living there. So it wasn't just the soldiers, posting up there. They had all these people had really nice homes. There was markets for like trade and all that stuff. They had like entertainment district kind of thing.
What year was this?
So it was built, started being built around 1573. So the last quarter of the 16th century. And, but unfortunately right around the 1700s, people just disappeared. And there's all speculation about what happened to these people and what happened to this fort and the town that was in it.
Okay. So
that's the mystery.
How many people are we talking? A town's worth?
About 10,000 people.
Okay.
So it wasn't.
So we're not talking like 100 people.
No. Yeah. It wasn't just like a Roanoke kind of thing. But it was like a thriving town. So it wasn't just militarized, but there were actual people living their daily lives, usually in peace. But it was also a fort, so it was used for war and battles and stuff like that. So it was pretty heavily fortified. Apparently,
you mentioned Roanoke, and it's funny. I was just there this past summer, and you're like thinking,
right. Yeah.
You're thinking that it's like this crazy. You're like, oh, Roanoke's going to be something there, and it's just like massive, some trees.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, this is where they were. You're just like, what? Like they built some stuff afterwards. You can have parties and stuff there. Like, but like it's just a pile of trees or like a circling of trees. And you're like, this is where we think they were. Or this is where the words were, the inscription they found or whatever.
I'm sure, yeah.
And so it's like super I was kind of you always expect that, especially with like you talk about like fort necessity, like that fort from it is just like a bunch of trees.
Yeah,
in the middle
you
of a field.
get up in your mind, and like after hearing about this stuff so much, you're like, oh man, this is a huge, elaborate, massive, sprawling thing.
We
But
see movies like Game of Thrones,
yeah, it gets
Lord of the Rings.
yeah, the high fantasy stuff. It kind of gets hyped up in your mind. Your imagination kind of runs wild. But this, I mean, from what I understand, from what I saw, this looks pretty close to some of that stuff. It was a pretty big area. I couldn't even find the exact measurements, so I had to go on like Google Earth to like kind of look at it. But it was like very impressive. They have 3 different walls of fortifications just to get into the town, like the town center. But they had a palace there, multiple temples, all kinds of houses, all kinds of buildings, markets. They had a jail for when they captured like people they're at war with. They had housing for horses and war elephants. So it was like, it was nothing like scoff at. It was impressive.
So this is in northern India.
Yeah, near so this is part of the Rajasthan state of India. So India's kind of broken up into states, and that state's borders kind of like northwestern India. It borders Pakistan.
Okay. And Pakistan at this time was not really a country?
It was, at this time, Pakistan was, not a country. Pakistan didn't become a country until after World War II, when this whole big migration that the British Empire divvied up the land between Muslims and Hindus. This horrible thing happened. Okay,
so who were there? I mean, I don't know if you talk about this. I'm sorry for jumping ahead. Who were they like at war with, or?
So this would have been, since this is a Mughal ran empire, it was mostly consolidated. Like it was mostly this time of peace at the beginning of this whole thing. When the Muslims came in, they're like, okay, we respect your religion. You just need to kind of acknowledge that we are running this land. Okay. So there kind of was a period of peace, but in due time, which we kind of found out later on when we were doing the Henry Avery thing, it didn't really always didn't last that long. So we have this massive fort, kind of geography and layout. It's near a very mountainous kind of forested area. It sat at a valley. So you have on one side of this a bunch of trees, forest, not flat. It's next to I hope I say this right, Averili Hill Range. That's kind of sat in like a valley of that. It's secluded. So from a militaristic standpoint, that's probably a good idea, because even at the time, there wasn't much around there. There would have been other forts. Usually people who are also like kind of the same, I wouldn't say what the right word for that would be, but like the same mindset that you're not going to be warring with these people. It's kind of a peaceful thing. Right. I'm sure there were skirmishes, and I'll mention them a little bit later, that some things did happen, possibly.
And you said it's in a valley?
Close to a valley, yeah. So you have a big hill range, and right at the base of it is this fort.
Okay.
And then beyond there is pretty much flat.
Okay.
So it kind of gives you an advantage. Atop, throughout this fort, there are lookout points, so they could see like who's coming, but I doubt they would really have to worry about people coming
over the hill.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You'd more or less be looking down on the town folk to see what they're doing, or to see if anyone's coming in from the distance.
Okay.
Because you have a pretty good lookout advantage because you're kind of sitting up there. So yes, it is secluded, so that could be a good thing, because you could see if people are coming or not. You kind of control your own stuff there. Modern day, there's a tiger sanctuary nearby.
Now there is.
Now there is, yeah, okay. Yeah. There wasn't back then, I don't believe. So there are 3 successive fortifications and 5 massive gates. I think there's only 4 points of entry into this fort. So eventually, at some point around the 1700s, this fort was abandoned. By all means, it's considered a very flourishing.
What was the date again? I'm sorry.
Around the 1700s. So
okay.
I think it was around the early 18th century, so early 1700s. But at some point, this fort was just totally abandoned. People were gone. A lot of it was at some point destroyed. There are still some of the temples are still erect there, but there's a lot of debris. But people are just totally gone. So the question is, what happened to these people? And there's a lot of lore surrounding that. A lot of it involves curses.
So in the 1700s on until modern day, they still don't have no idea what happened.
Not really, no. No, there's a lot of urban legends, because again, even today there's not much around there. So there's a lot of urban legends about locals who live somewhat close to the area. Like this place is pretty. I think the closest place is like 20 miles away. So people that usually are probably living on this area are just kind of like local farmers or just, something along those lines. So there's not much around there. So to go in some of the lore, there's two popular reasons for why the fort was abandoned and what happened to these people. And the rationality might not be there, but I think they're interesting because some of it deals with culture, possibly religion. So I think it's interesting looking at this stuff because it kind of like shows what the mindset is maybe of people back then or even today. So one of the most popular reasons is that prior to construction of the fort, before they even decided to build a fort, there was a hermit, someone called a sadhu, and a sadhu is basically like a monk.
Okay.
So they spend their whole lives removed from society, and their whole idea is to remove themselves from material possessions, wants, and needs in order to attain enlightenment. And then in regards to this is to be the Hindu religion. So we kind of have like in the West, we have kind of the same thing. Monks, they live alone and like they don't, no material possessions, no, sex or anything like that. So this guy was living here. His name is Balu Nath. And he was living there and he'd go there to meditate. And he was asked apparently by people trying to build a fort, like, hey, do you mind if you build it? He's like, yeah, that's fine. As long as you don't build anything higher than my house. Everything, as long as nothing casts a shadow on my house. Why that is, I do not know. But it's said that he proclaimed this, like, you can do this, but just don't cast anything that will cast a shadow or build anything that casts a shadow over my house.
So this guy was a monk, hermit that lived there.
Yeah.
He's like,
you
can build whatever you want.
Yeah.
And it's not like he owned the land. He just was near. He just lived around there.
No, but the thing is, though, too, like these are people who are fairly highly revered. Like it's to slight them, it'd be kind of like slighting your own religion because these are people who are Hindus,
religious
so
kind of leaders.
Yeah, so the people that were living here and trying to build this fort in town here, like they weren't necessarily a different religion. Like they understood that this gentleman was a very devout holy man, but.
So these guys just show up and say, we're going to build a fort?
We want to build a fort here.
And they're from?
They're from this region.
Okay.
And actually the ruler of this region, he's building it for his son. I think what I mentioned earlier. But this ruler, his sister was actually one of the consorts of Akbar. Did we talk about Akbar last time?
No.
So
Aurangzeb was
Aurangzeb was kind of one of the last Muslim emperors, because what happened was originally when this all started, when the Muslims came in, they kind of had this agreement with the Hindus, like, we're taking everything over, but we'll kind of leave you alone as long as you recognize that we, rule this country. So there's some things that were going on, like for example, in this case, the Hindu leader in this particular area, this state, married off his sister to Akbar, and Akbar had multiple wives. By doing this, when you kind of do something like this, you're strengthening your bonds. Like, I'll give you my sister, you kind of let me do my own thing over here, and then you produce a son. And actually, that his sister's son ended up being the next ruler of the Mughal Empire. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but. It's kind of a common thing. Akbar's son is the nephew of this current ruler of
Okay.
But he's building this temple for his other son, who's not who's still practicing Hindu and who's kind of through a different wife. But it's kind of, you see this during the Middle Ages, like it's happened a lot of times with France and in England, like which caused marriages of succession in both areas, like. In order to improve relations, or in order like, hey, we'll stop this war. We want to have these good relations. You can have my sister. You marry her. She'll produce male offspring for you. We'll keep things civil, and then down the line, and years, maybe a century later, you have these wars for succession because like who actually rules these things? Who actually has rights to these thrones?
Yeah, I think
I just thought it was interesting because it kind of happens. Like I don't say it happened in this case, but I didn't realize this stuff was kind of happening everywhere.
I was just recently listening and watching something about the Rasputin, and they go into the Romanov family and Alexei Romanov.
Yeah.
He married Queen Elizabeth's daughter or something. Like it's a British
Victoria. Yeah, yeah.
Her daughter or someone moved to marry in the Romanov Empire. Yeah. And then everything happened. And that was like the Rasputin story and everything. But it's like really crazy how like person from Britain came over. Although they seemed that the story was they like truly loved each other, but like that was like a big deal of like, oh, we can. Oh, right, rule in one of the most, at the time, one of the most powerful empires.
Sure.
The Russian Empire in the, was it 1900s?
Yeah.
Or late 1800s.
So
so like just marrying off people here and there to get like in charge of.
Yeah, favor or like just improve relations and stuff like that. So I know, I thought it was kind of cool. Like I knew that was happening in the world, but I thought it was kind of interesting that like it wasn't just, an isolated kind of thing. So the fort's abandoned. What happened? People are gone. It was a little bit's in ruin. So we have Balu Nath, who is the hermit sadhu who's living there. So what happens is they say, screw it, we're going to build this anyways. And they're building all these structures that end up casting a shadow over his home.
And this is a theory.
Yes.
This guy wasn't around. He's like, that's what they did that. Okay.
I don't know if the Balu Nath is an actual real person, but it's said, according to lore, or maybe urban legend or myth, that he was. So they offended this monk or this sadhu. And by doing so, he put a curse on the whole town. And what ended up happening was, modern day now, where the fort now, there's no roofs on any of these buildings. And it's said that every time they try to build a roof on any of this stuff, it just crumbles and falls apart.
Okay.
So they're saying this decay or the inability to build anything since this curse happened is one of the downfalls of why these structures aren't up anymore, why the town couldn't survive.
Well, there's some structures that are just,
there are
parts missing.
Sure. Right. So some of the temples, they still have these pristine roofs, but like a lot of the houses, just like the roofs fall apart. The markets is kind of like you can't, a lot of the locals are just like, we tried to build a roof, this falls apart.
Okay. Do you know what they used for building materials back then?
Stone and brick.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for roofs?
Same thing, I would imagine, yeah. So it can be a matter of weight distribution. I don't know. But at one point, some of these other buildings worked. They had roofs on them.
Right.
It's a curse.
Okay.
So,
gotcha. Especially, this, I don't know if this part of India, we hear about this part of the world has big monsoons and I don't know if it's northern India. I'm not sure what the location is, but like, is that, you can always think about like natural disasters.
Oh no, of course. Absolutely. Yeah. So a lot of locals are like, this town's cursed. Ever since he cursed this town, we can't build anything. We can't keep anything like up and erect. So everything just kind of collapsed. So the second curse of why this fort and town didn't survive.
Curse or second theory?
Second curse. There's two curses.
Okay.
Of why this town didn't survive. They're apparently like these are very like well known like reasons why this place didn't survive. Princess Ratnavati, said to be like this beautiful young woman who all these men were like in love with and like were pursuing her because she's a princess. So you had all these young men that were suitors trying to get her hand in marriage. She's a princess and she's beautiful. Apparently there was this is where it kind of gets, a little out there. There's a sorcerer of black magic who fell in love with her.
Okay.
Again, she's a very beautiful woman.
Jafar from Aladdin.
Yeah, so he's like, you will be mine. He created a love potion. And this is where things kind of get a little like iffy. Like at some point, she came in possession of this love potion. It was said that she was at a market looking for perfumes or like oils to like, for scent, perfume. But it's said that somehow she got a hold of this potion thinking it was like a perfume or oil. But somehow she knew, whether she was told by a maiden of hers or that she was familiar with, the black arts, that she knew this was, treachery. This wasn't real. So she comes across this potion, realizes it's not like what she's looking for. Like it's not one of these oils, realizes she's being duped, becomes aggravated, annoyed by this man, picks up the bottle, throws it at the ground, And he either creates this massive boulder or just lodges a boulder that then rolls to the black sorcerer, crushes him to death.
So she created the boulder, or his magic created the boulder?
So either the fact that when she threw the potion at him, when the potion like shattered on the ground, either created this massive boulder or it hit a boulder that dislodged it, which proceeded to roll towards him.
Okay.
So it crushed him to death. But apparently before it crushed him to death, he put a curse on the town.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it checks out.
Yeah. So before he dies, like, I curse this town. And apparently,
before I die, I'm going to curse this town. Yeah.
As is, this boulder's crushing him, I guess. Apparently, though, within a year, there was a fort nearby, not too far from here. He's either said that there were Mughals themselves, because again, this might be the time when the Mughals and Hindus weren't getting along too well, or just another fort, don't really understand why, came in and apparently almost annihilated this whole town.
Is this a second theory?
This is part of the theory of the second curse of what happened to these people.
Okay.
So this horde comes in from a separate fort or a Mughal empire, because they could have been at this time like not on good terms, comes in and completely wipes out all the town, including this princess.
Okay, back to the princess.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's said that this town, a lot of town folk, and the princess herself are in a perpetual state of limbo and just curse this town. They walk around as ghosts and stuff like that. Because
the sorcerer cursed her and then
the town.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's also said that the sorcerer apparently...
I mean, it's so complicated, it has to be true. There's so much...
But also apparently the sorcerer, it's reported that people see his ghost and that he won't lift the curse until the princess comes back.
Okay.
So either way, people think this town is cursed.
Right.
And the fort's cursed. So that's two of the possible reasons: lore, urban legends, myths, the mystery of why this town is vacant, fell to rubble.
These are two stories that's out there.
Yes.
And okay, that I always love a good curse, because it really handles everything pretty succinctly.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I don't necessarily believe in curses, but I think there's something that could be...
You can't prove they're not real.
Right. There's also something to be said about, like, say someone believes this, someone else might start, like, believing it, or, like, a predetermined kind of thing. Like, that might not necessarily be cursed, but, like, you start believing it so much that, like, maybe other people start believing it so much that,
especially
like,
during that
we're
time.
doomed.
Yeah.
We're doomed. So, like, we're doomed to fail. What's that term where, like, you think something bad's going to happen, that you kind of do it yourself that something bad does happen?
Self-fulfilling prophecy?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I don't know if that's the exact term.
Right, yeah. It might not necessarily be a curse, but like people start believing that. You get that kind of group mentality.
You can bring it upon yourself.
Sure.
Yeah.
Also, though, like, I had a hard time finding to see if this is actually what happened when these people, like, so say these people actually did come in and slaughter the whole town and fort, the people that were living there. It's possible that could have happened. But it's also possible that it wasn't because of a curse. It just was bad relations.
Yeah, and you figure something like that, if it was this other place, this other group coming in,
yeah,
they'd probably want to make record of that, saying like, we took them down.
You would think.
Or they would take over the fort.
Right, you would think. But there's not. I could not find any writing about this actual event happening. Aside, like, it's all, it seems kind of hearsay. And I don't just.
And it seems like a small thing in history, like, but where 10,000, you said almost 10,000 people lived, and then they all got wiped out. It seems like there should have been record of this, because there's 10,000 people involved.
Yeah, I think it was like anywhere from like 10,000 to 15,000 people were living there at one point. So it seems it's not just like a Roanoke thing where people just, what was it, 100 people, if that, just disappeared. Like,
yeah, it wasn't very many.
This is like a self-sustaining kind of big deal.
In future episodes, I hope to talk about Roanoke.
We definitely will.
We'll get more details on that. But this is a small area, and there's tons of stories like this around the world.
Sure.
But a lot that you don't hear about. That's why I like looking into these little things. Like,
that's why I thought it was interesting. One, because I wanted to look more into the Mughal Empire, but two is like, I have never heard of this.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean that no one else has, but I just thought it was very interesting. It's considered one of the most haunted sites in all of India,
Really?
and the world.
Okay.
So I was like, there's got to be something here, something to
And
this.
you don't hear about it.
No. So I think this might be because the Archaeological Survey of India, this is a government ran
So wait,
institution.
so this is your theory? This is what?
This is okay. So this is not a theory. This is something that's actually like real right now. So it's something called the Archaeological Survey of India. This is a government ran institution.
Okay.
They prohibit entry to the site of the fort in this town from dusk till dawn. They put up signs everywhere, so you can't go in, because So I saw that, right. Like, why would they prohibit that? Originally, I was like, well, maybe it's because for safety reasons, as in like there might be some fallen debris. Right. It's night out. They're next to a tiger sanctuary.
And
wild
when you
animals.
say that, kid, all the kids around the area are going to want to go there.
Yeah, which apparently happened. Or are they doing this because it's possible that there might be something to this? They might actually believe this. And another thing,
parks around state parks and
sure.
national parks are closed dusk to dawn.
Right,
unless you have special
bears, stuff like that. So it's not like that, but it's kind of like that. But apparently, no foreigner is allowed to go in there. Only Indian citizens can go in there. And you can like say me wanted to go, we'd have to get special permission from the government.
And
to
I'm
go
sure
here.
you'd have to be some kind of researcher or have university
documentary and stuff like that.
You can't just be like, I want to go there.
Yeah.
It's just you got to go there for some kind of educational purpose.
So the BBC was actually able to go there and film something there as like a documentary. So I actually talked to like specialists and people that actually work these grounds, to kind of like get some factual information about it.
Is there any records of any type of archaeological activity there? Is there like research there?
Oh yeah, they're still
trying to determine that.
Trying to determine, yes. So we'll go in a little bit so now we're kind of dealing with the supernatural, stuff like that. But we will be going into like possible more maybe again I don't want to dismiss any of this stuff, but possible more logical, rational things of what happened here. Supernatural.
Yeah.
So that stuff, the curses and all that stuff happened, 1,300 years ago, but things are still happening there now, which I think is one of the reasons why the government was like, yeah, no one coming in after night. So I'm going to go with a couple things here I thought was kind of interesting. Again, this is kind of urban legends, locals talking about stuff. And like we've all heard urban legends. But the locals and visitors do actually get to go there. They talk about when they go in, they'll get that like feeling of like nausea or paranoia or an actual illness when they go in there. So again, this could be just they already know about the area.
Yeah, self-fulfilling
kind of thing, right?
If that's the right word, I'm
sure.
Free to correct us in the comments or whatever.
Also, locals and visitors talk about seeing or hearing lots of strange things coming from the area. They'll sometimes hear music playing on the site, like within the grounds. They might hear like dancing, like large groups dancing. There's a story of 3 men going into the fort at night. One of them supposedly fell down a well. He didn't die in the well, but his 2 friends found him, grabbed him. Were on the way to take him to the hospital, but they died in a car wreck on the way to the hospital.
So, okay, when was this?
This is like recently.
Okay, so
like in the past,
times.
like modern. Okay. Yeah, this is all modern times. How they knew these guys were in there, how they knew they were coming. Like people say these guys actually did die. This happened. They died in a car wreck to the hospital.
Cursed.
How would you know that though? How would you know that they were there in the first place?
Yeah.
Right.
Who? Yes.
So it's one of those like
they're coming from the direction of that town,
right?
So this is what happened.
Who knows? Right? Apparently, they died in like some freak auto accident, like trying to go to the hospital.
Okay.
But how would they know? How would anyone outside that car? Because they're all had passed, unfortunately. But how would anyone know they were there? They're going to the hospital. Again, these are all stories, local stories that people talk about.
And could these be those stories of like, This is a story they tell their teenagers so they don't go driving around there.
100%. Yeah,
we tell little kids so they don't go run around there.
Yeah.
You know,
like what's the one with the kids that like make out point there, a hook on the car,
so they won't go to make out point.
Yeah, don't have unprotected sex, kids. So then there's another urban legend where a group of small boys apparently bribed a guard to let them go in the fort, but he said, "Don't go in at night. You don't want to go at night." What do? Tell a kid they can't do something. They do it anyway. So they went in at night. And keep in mind, some of the houses that are still there, they're all boarded up. Doors, windows are barred. So apparently they went in at night. They were walking around one of the streets, and they looked into a house through a barred window and saw a lone kid just sitting there by himself, which they thought was a ghost.
Okay, little kid sitting in, okay.
Yeah, which would be creepy. I would be terrified. If I, saw this and this, of course, if this actually happened, I'd be terrified too,
Well, yeah. I mean, anywhere you go to any abandoned thing and you see another person, it's terrible. And then there's,
plus in your head, you're like working things up in your head too. Like,
oh yeah. You hear things. It's really just the wind, like that type of story. Like, well, it's always, and you see those like different shows about ghost hunting and stuff. And it's like, is it the wind or is it someone talking? It's like, well,
yeah.
Who can say?
Oh, yeah, like, oh, my spectrometer is going off the charts. It means something's here. And people have gone there. Like, most of them aren't Western people. Most are, like I said, because a lot of foreigners aren't allowed to go here. But they have, like, there are people that go there and will do, like, stay there overnight and, like, record things. And some people claim they see some stuff or hear some stuff. Or other people are just like, no. But again, so this is kind of a secluded area. And again, like, it's by Tiger Sanctuary. There are monkeys that come through there. So, like, who knows what you're hearing?
I mean, we do know how far the closest town is.
So apparently there's like a resort that's, when I was looking on Google Earth, there's a resort that's not too far away, but it is a significant amount of distance away.
And so the resort has to have people that work at it. So that means there has to be a town pretty close as well.
Yeah. I mean, the town is the resort's in this town. It didn't look very big, but aside from that, like there's not much around there. And again, they might have done this when they built this fort for that sole purpose of being secluded. Because if they saw someone coming, they like knew that might mean we're going to war, we're going to battle. Right. So, I mean, who knows? So again, this goes back to why the Archaeological Survey of India don't want people going in and out of there.
They don't get sued.
They don't get sued. Yeah, because like you don't know if people are going to go in and like vandalize this place, try and steal something. I don't know how much like artifacts are still there, but who knows what they'd be going in there. So I don't know if it's like safety reasons or just more or less preserving the site for more archaeological like digging and like understanding what happened, like you were trying to say earlier.
I think when it comes to a lot of this type of stuff, there's a lot of awesome urban exploring channels out there. One that comes to mind is Shay. Another one on the along the beaten path or on the beaten path, unbeaten path.
Are they like exploring abandoned
stuff?
Okay.
Right? And there was one of them, I believe it was Shay or Shaw. I'm not sure. He awesome. He goes on his crazy trips to like sometimes by himself, sometimes with people, where he'll just go to Chernobyl and like sneak in and then stay there for a couple of days and sneak out and like they show you like how you would do it, and it's insane.
Yeah.
But one of the things he makes reference to, and I'm sorry if I'm misquoting him or if it's another channel, because you do that, fall into that YouTube hole. Keep watching stuff.
And then it's 4 in the morning. You're like, I gotta get up.
I gotta go to work in like an hour. He says that like some reason like Europe and European countries have like really and some I think specifically they mentioned might have been the Proper People. That's another amazing channel.
Okay.
Check out. Like American laws on trespassing are so extreme.
Oh, yeah.
But like other places in the world, they're not.
So is it more or less just kind of like you're at your own risk when you do something like this? Like if something happens to you, you're on your own?
Because I think that if you fall down a hole or something, then they're gonna have to pay to get you out. They're gonna have to,
Yeah.
But like even if you just get caught, it's not as bad.
Oh, all right. I didn't know that.
In other places, because and this goes back to like reference in the video where they were alluding to was, and sorry for misquoting, that everybody in America, like everybody's scared of getting sued.
Yeah.
So if you fall in some place, because of the way our laws are set up,
the
way
drug ads we have.
yeah, like if you fall in a hole in an abandoned building in America, then you're probably going to sue the owner of the building instead of being like cops are not like, they're going to be like, no, just shut up. And the just even if you go to trial, the judge will be like, why the hell were you in there? But they still use chance that the owner could get sued. So it's like a lot of things like that, like in European countries, I've heard, again, strictly anecdotal evidence based on YouTube videos.
This guy went to Chernobyl?
Oh yeah, you should check him out. It's awesome. Yeah, sometimes he'll just like, he usually does a lot of train hopping, which is insane. Okay. There's another one in Vagabond, which I'm really into right now. He's a guy from Russia, and he just like goes into the northern parts of Siberia and stuff himself. Oh, man. And he just rides trains and jumps trains, and he hitchhikes. Awesome. But Shay does a lot of like train hopping. Okay. Where I'm going to go through Croatia from one end to the other. Yeah. Just hop. It's insane.
Plus, I think with something like this, that's supposed to be considered like one of the most haunted places in the world, or at least, in India. In India, it's saying a lot because like they have a very, very rich history. I would imagine there's people who want to do the same thing.
Oh yeah, imagine.
These kids really did do that. Like, that's like a clout kind of thing. Put on TikTok.
Yeah, like I'm sure there's tons of videos or maybe there's not any videos of people exploring this place.
There's quite a few people doing it, and they all like, they bring like their equipment and stuff like that. But I don't know at least in India, I don't know what the repercussions would be for these people who do this.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
there's a lot of like people like, again, going back to these channels, some of them will like go into like a, because of World War II, a lot of underground bunkers and stuff. Yeah. They'll break into them and they'll like command centers and stuff, and they'll just like film it, then they'll stay there for the night, then they'll wake up and like, the hell? Like it's just insane. Like staying in an abandoned bunker, in the middle of the it would be awesome. Yeah. But
so yeah, when I was kind of going through some of the stuff, like I thought it was before, like I remember I went to Monsville prison in West Virginia, and you do like during like Halloween. And they kind of like turn all the lights off and lock you in like a cell. Yeah. And I was like, man, my mind's kind of like running wild right now. Cause I'm sure, tons of people have died there with horrible things that happen. So I'm like, kind of like, when you're in the instances where your
brain starts messing with your brain. Yeah.
So who knows? I mean, this could never be, I don't know if this could be something like this be proven, but like, who knows if any of this stuff actually happened, at least with these people going in their modern time, checking this place out. Who knows if they actually saw something, there's a thing around their imagination, or it's just like you were saying earlier, this could be a story that, parents tell their kids, like, get out of there.
Cautionary tale.
Yeah. So those are kind of like the supernatural explanations for why this place failed. But I feel like there could be some logical things of why these people just disappeared, why this small town of Fort, not small, but this fort could have collapsed.
So is this theories, or is this your idea?
These are kind of things things I could think of, like what happened in like the past with other.
So this is what you think happened. Yes. Possibly.
I'm gonna rattle some things. Tell me what you think. Yeah. Because just from like studying history, there's certain things that can happen that can cause something like this logically of why a town would just be abandoned and why people would just leave it all of a sudden. War. Battle could be a threat. Possibly the fact that like one of the instances after that one curse of the princess, after the black sorcerer died, he said, you're gonna
curse.
You're cursed.
Yeah.
And then like a year later, all these people came in and murdered everybody. Again, like I was saying earlier, like that might not be because of the curse, but it just happened that these people came in, they're having issues with people, and they all actually died. Or it could be some other outside force of people coming in and like taking this place out, because eventually in time the Mughals and the Hindus were getting along very well, so this could very well be a matter of religious conflict, regional conflict, economic conflict, or just trying to gain possession of this fort.
But no one was there to take possession of it.
Right, that's a thing. So that's why I was like, maybe that's not the case, because if they wanted the fort, they would have stayed there.
The fort, and it would have prospered.
Sure. So I was like, that's usually a likely thing. Like, we went to battle, we're going to take your fort, because who would want a fort? It seems like it's in a pretty good spot. So I was like, maybe that's not what happened. Plague, illness, an outbreak, something like that is always a possibility.
Would there be records of that? at this time? Would there be a bunch of bodies?
Right.
Would these people show up and be like, holy crap, everybody's dead.
Yeah, everybody's dead. I thought the same thing. Again, there's wildlife there. Not saying, all these people would be like dragged away by tigers or anything like that. But sometimes a plague happens, if someone gets it, as they start to spread, everyone leaves. But again,
that makes sense.
Would there be records of that though?
Right.
I feel like there would be. Or there would be
because they escaped and then
there might
they
be
ran to the next town and said, hey.
There might be this, this mass migration of all these thousands of people being like, hey, there's a plague going on over here. We need help.
Yeah.
Lack or loss of resources. So again, they're in pretty secluded area. Water might have become an issue. I know there were springs around there, but there could have been droughts that were happening during this time. If you don't have water, that's obviously a big issue. Now there's natural springs that there's water there now that a lot of the wildlife use, like monkeys and some animals get there at night and use it. But it was said at the time maybe there was a drought going on in this part of India. If that's the case, then that'd be a reason for everyone to leave. It's happened before. So those are some of my theories about like what happened to the people themselves during that time, during when supposedly these curses happen. But what happens to the people that supposedly go in there and disappear? So the locals saying people go in at night and disappear and never come out again.
I think I always like those stories because it's like, yeah, that guy just went and disappeared.
Yeah.
And then I buried in my backyard. Like it's one of those. It's like back in like when they say, there's statistics about like murder rates and stuff like that and different times in history, and it's like you're walking like you go to part even in America. Let's say it's 1900s, and you're like, hey, we're going to that family that lived up there in that house. They're gone. What happened to them? And this guy's like, they sold me the house and they left, man. And like, meanwhile, he
left all their stuff.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I buried and even then, you didn't really have a lot of stuff. But like that type of thing is always crazy because like, yeah, they just left.
Yeah,
I don't know where they went. They just said that they didn't care and they left. Right. They sold me their house and they took off. Those kind of things are crazy, and they happen there. And even more so in like unrecorded history or like in this time, even 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
People just appear.
It's curious too, because like people were, like I was reading some of the stuff that said the locals think about like, there's no one really around there unless these people are just like kind of hermits themselves, like living off the land. So I thought it was kind of like locals say these kids went in there and then just disappeared.
Or they're just saying that to keep people out.
And I think generally that's what's happening is there's these urban legends that are going on. But at the same time, though, again, I don't keep saying this, but there is a tiger sanctuary that has borders with and people are saying they're hearing these noises and like, there are monkeys that live there, tigers, apparently, I think panthers or jaguars get in there too. Like at night, this is when they're out doing their thing.
And this is like a sanctuary as in like, and they're just free to roam around.
Yeah. So
it's a protected area that's for these animals.
I'm sorry, I forgot the name is the name is the Sariska Reserve that now borders that area. I'm assuming it's enclosed, so people like poachers and stuff can't go in there. But I'd imagine these animals are able to get out somehow.
Yeah, and maybe it's not enclosed, but
it's a heavily forested area, so maybe that's like the natural.
They're just it's more of a protected area that they're not allowed to develop.
Yeah. I think that's probably the case. Yeah. So if that's the case, then these animals can come and go as they please. In the sanctuary, there was now water, like shallow water sitting there. They might come and go for a drink. See some dumb hop in there and
there's still stuff there to this day, like still buildings or generally ruins.
Buildings, there's structures. There's still structures here. Again, a lot of them don't have roofs, maybe because of this curse, or maybe just poor building.
Either built out of leaves and the leaves,
But there was like their building style was pretty advanced back then because it was based off of a town in Delhi, India, like the style. So like some of these pictures that I was looking at was like very, very like impressive. It's not just like, huts or shacks, but like they're built up.
Stone and
like some of them are like mansions for like single families. So like it's not, it's not like poorly built or like structures they're trying to build.
It seems like for the time, it's more advanced. For
It's
the
pretty.
time.
Yes, it was very advanced. Yeah.
In that they were built to last because
Yes.
they weren't like moving around.
Right.
They weren't in the nomadic tradition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is supposed to meant to be like a town that would last, and the structure is supposed to last too. So that's what I thought was kind of interesting as far as what happened and why some of the stuff is has fallen apart. Most of it, from what I understand, is kind of in ruins. So I don't know if that's just like natural, something that happened naturally over time, weather. But I don't think this area is prone to like, since it does border Pakistan, and it's not on like the bay. It's like northwest, so they're not getting monsoons. I don't believe. So I feel like these structures should be holding up. But again, it's also been 300 something years now since then, since everyone disappeared.
So people go in here in modern times, or what they say is modern times, and they're disappearing.
Yeah.
No records of where they went.
No.
Okay. And we still have no records of where the people that built the town went.
Nope.
The 10,000.
They apparently just disappeared.
So what do you think happened? What is your theory? If you had to guess,
man,
our show about trying to answer that question.
Yeah.
What do you?
I feel like often we're not going to be able to answer anything, but
well, no, we're never going to be able to answer anything.
Yeah, but we'll give
like
our educated guess.
Sure, that's what we'll call it.
I remember, man.
Let me.
I don't think. I personally don't believe in curses. So I don't think that's why this place was abandoned.
That's like the first thing. That's like the last time someone says that, and then they're like,
"Then I die on the way home."
I mean, some very tragic.
And I don't want to just like, I'm not crapping anyone's beliefs, but I do think there's usually a logical reason. It's usually, I think you said this the last episode. There's usually like the
most boring reason is
the actual reason.
Yeah.
So I think. And I remember seeing this on, I think the BBC thing I watched, the one archaeologist said like, he believed that there's a water drought during this time. And that happens, like, if you can't get water, you can't stay there because there's a secluded area.
Yeah.
And apparently there's not a lot of water around there. Apparently it's a few streams. If that dries up, like, you got to go. You can't grow anything.
And they never came back?
Never came back.
But if they leave, wouldn't they tell someone?
That's with all my theories I came up with. That's what I don't understand.
Yeah. Or there's no recording of what happened.
At least Roanoke, again, we'll hope to God we go into this. There was a note left,
Yeah.
But
even you think about...
There was nothing.
If you think about Inca and those...
Yeah.
In South America and Yucatan Peninsula, like those... what was the big one down there? Sorry. Mayan, yeah. And most archaeologists, or the story seems to be, and whether this is true or not, is they kind of just spread out and kind of became the modern people of that area.
Yeah.
They just left those places that were the Mayan ruins. They just left and integrated in other parts because of weather systems changing.
Dispersion. Yeah. But there's apparently nothing.
No record of where they went. At least with... Mayan civilizations, it seems that there's records of them moving, from what I understand.
So I wonder if, I don't know, like, is it a newer endeavor that they're trying to figure out what's going on there? Like, I wonder if that might be the case, or there is a general fear to go into this place. You think as an archaeologist, really want it, like, this would have been like picked over by them.
Yeah.
Just to see what happened out of curiosity, because that's their job. Like, what happened to these people? But would there be an actual fear, maybe based in,
religious beliefs,
Hinduism, or actual curses? Again, that's why I don't want to like crap on the idea of a curse. But could that be why this place might have been picked over to figure out what the hell happened to these people? I don't know.
And it's the people that do go missing. It's like kind of like the Tutankhamun's curse.
Yeah,
like that. Happened that they have a general understanding of what happened with what that actually means, being that the backstory of what happened there and what became known as Tutankhamun's curse scientists had understood it to be this, but like you still have this curse that lives on of like, what is the curse? And
Right.
you open his tomb and you die. Was it bacteria? Something that killed the people that opened it was actually a bacterial thing or something with going on in that area.
And stuff like that is only going to build up over time.
It's like,
it's only going to be more speculated upon. The myths can be more built upon. The fear might rise and something like that, like for people wanting to do that. But there was a general concern for that with Tutankhamun's, site.
Still to this day, it's still they talk about that more than actually what happened.
Yeah.
It's well known because it's more interesting.
Yeah. What do you when you think of like something like this happens? What do you generally think is the cause of it
throughout history?
Overall, like general, not in this specific case. You can give me your thought on that, but overall, what do you think like are one of the bigger factors for why
resources
something happens?
Another place that comes to mind is like what's that place in the Amazon, Fordlandia, the city that Ford built to harvest rubber trees.
Oh, okay.
And then someone invented synthetic rubber and crap. And they built like one time like the water tower in the town, which is still, I just read an article about it recently. It's still a town. There's still people that live there. And the water tower was the tallest thing in the Amazon at that time.
Oh, wow.
And like it's still there and people still live there. And they're just left with this town that was built and people moved there and like tons of money was spent. And then synthetic rubber was invented not too long after. And they're like, well,
see you later.
Yeah. So like they'll just abandon the place. So there's like mansions and it's like big, for the executives and stuff like that. And we see that in coal mining towns.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You see the same thing.
Yeah.
You come in for the work. We see it all over the nation.
Yeah.
And another great YouTube channel. Yeah. Ghost Town Living.
Yep.
A guy just bought a ghost town. He lives there.
That's crazy.
And he's turning it. It's amazing. He goes into these mines it's crazy. It's insane. And it's just like so much stuff, so much money was spent, so much time was spent just to abandon it.
But you're absolutely right. There's a big history of that all over the world of this happening. We're like, oh, we have this thing. We're to build here. We need whatever resources here. Something better comes along. Leave it.
Yeah.
We're done.
I mean, I'd love to think that it was a curse of a boulder rolling over some guy.
Yeah. I mean, that's much more fun.
Yeah. But
wizard dying?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because he's scorned.
I think my understanding from your story that I've never heard before, it seems like it was a resource thing. More unrealistic, an invading army, that type of thing. I think an invading army makes a lot of sense too. They come in, they wipe everybody out, maybe for religious reasons.
Sure.
Wipe out. But then they would want to promote that. They want to talk about that. And they would use the fort for their own. Yeah. They would take everything out.
Yeah. Because
was there still stuff left?
Victory, the victor goes to spoils.
Yeah.
And the victor writes history. So like, why wouldn't they take advantage of that? That's what I thought was kind of odd.
And why wouldn't they, and if it was a religious thing, why wouldn't they topple the temple?
Sure.
What resources makes a lot of sense. Plague, I don't really think that makes a lot of sense because I'm sure there'll be records of bodies being found. Maybe.
Yeah.
It depends who is there any record of who kind of stumbled upon
who comes across that? Hey, not that I saw, yeah.
Or who comes across it and been like, hey, where'd all these people go? Like, who asked that question first?
Right.
What happened in this town?
So, I mean, someone had to come across this, right? Like,
or was it just like they all kind of moved to this other town and they all kind of like, oh yeah, they're all kind of like, oh yeah, this something crazy happened up there, but it's really like his grandfather moved down to this town because there's water here.
Right.
Was this other town just all the people from that town, just like what happened with Mayan civilizations? Did they just move to the resort and we're like, oh, resort's here, cool. Like, oh, we don't want to live there, man.
I'm pretty sure the closest place is now like a town, but it's now a resort.
Town.
Yeah, and I think it was like I was looking at Google Earth. It was a significant amount.
So they built these guys come in, they build a fort. A king gives it to us. It's for his second son. Yeah. Okay, so he builds a fort, which means it has some kind of significance. Which means
it has a palace, it has all these temples, it has a market, entertainment area.
Is there any story what happened to him?
Oh,
what happens with him and his family, his lineage? Does he go on to rule anything? Does he die in battle? Does he move to Delhi or something because he gets a job or he gets in charge of something else? So I think if you follow that lineage of like what happened, okay, where did he go? Did he just leave? And what happened with, okay, then if he leaves, was everybody else like, no one's in control now? Who's in charge?
Yeah.
Was it like, all the leaders are leaving, we better get the hell out of here, something's going down?
Right. So it's eventually, like, I don't know how Mealy was after this, I can't remember, but this area that I believe they're in ends up becoming Jaipur. Jaipur, yeah. So
is that one of this is the story about the Royal Detective. Oh, what the hell? Mira, the Royal Detective, this cartoon on
who?
Disney. Mira, the Royal Detective, this Disney cartoon my daughter watches. It's about this Royal Detective in Jaipur.
Okay.
Jaipur, India.
Yeah, that's like so.
Oh, I wonder if it's the same place.
So so I do know.
I can tell you I know what happened because so the Royal Detective, right? She finds out there's all this stuff going on, and she helps the Queen Shanti is her name, and so Queen Shanti hires this little girl to be the Royal Detective for the whole town, and that's probably why the town went to hell because they hired a little girl to be a detective and solve. But also, the sheriff is a cow. Obviously, important.
Sacred.
But the cow handles business.
All right.
He just says, he takes everybody to jail. It's usually the same two jackasses that are like, they dress up, they put mustaches on one episode. Like it's
can't tell who you are now.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. It's a great. The music in that show is awesome. I can tell you that. I love how that culture has like their media is always like more dancing and songs and stuff.
Bali.
I think it's just an awesome, it's an awesome concept. Or like they're that kind of like history or that kind of the way they handle their media is awesome.
Okay.
And that's comes through in the show. You should watch. Everybody should watch it.
Is this something you watch? On your own?
I mean, I have to watch it. I watched every episode like 40 times.
Why?
Because she watches it nonstop. I mean, like she used to, not recently, but
she's over it now.
Well, every new season's like new, a new thing. But like Queen Shanti.
Oh, sorry, I don't.
Jaipur.
I might have missed you saying you watch it with your daughter. I was like, so you're just watching this on your own?
No,
I think I missed the part where you watch it with your daughter. I was like, so you just watch this show on your own? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was really interested in learning the history of India through a cartoon show.
There you go, man. Learning is learning. So yeah, I do know at some point
so it's now known as Jaipur.
Jaipur, yeah.
Okay, and it's
still in the state of Rajasthan, but the area that this is in eventually did change over. Like the rulers that were in this particular area, I can't remember the name of them. Very sorry, but like they eventually like fall out of power, and it eventually turns into Jaipur.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly what happened to Madho Singh, the one this fort's built for, but I'd be curious to know that. Should look into that.
Well, so I think I would love to know more about this. This seemingly like it seems like you say a fort and then it's actually a whole town and things like that. So that's really interesting. And actually that there is no record of what happened. And
right
again. What I think, obviously, the most boring thing, resources.
Yeah.
And you believe?
I believe the same thing. Yeah. It's fun to look at, like the supernatural or like these fun urban legends or myths or curses. Like that's a fun thing to look at, but I think again it goes down to kind of the most
people got to eat, people got to drink.
Right. The most obvious answer. Not all the time, but.
So does that wrap up our story of the
Bhangarh Fort?
Bhangarh Fort. What happened to Bhangarh Fort?
What happened to these people?
Yes.
What happened to the roofs?
The roofs.
What about the poor wizard who the princess did not love?
And it's really I think there's another story of this where that's like it's told from his perspective, where he's like the one. It's like we're like looking at him as like, oh, that poor guy. So I want to say thank you, Jordan, for bringing us to my attention. And
I just thought it was something different, something I never heard of, and it kind of got on this when I was researching stuff from the last episode. So I don't know, I think it's kind of a neat thing we're doing here.
Yep. And please, bear with us with the logo. We're still working out that, only being our second episode. Please go back and listen to the first episode on Henry Avery, or Where is Henry Avery's Treasure, where we discuss that. The episode 0, which we posted about ourselves, who we are, why we're doing this,
Yep.
the who, what, why, when, and how, and all that type of stuff. We do have social media accounts at this point. If you're listening to us, like if you listen to this thing,
Oh yeah, this will all be done already.
yeah, we have them set up as far as like we're still working out logo, website, all that type of stuff. So by the time you actually hear this, that stuff will kind of be figured out and be done. Please check the notes, the show notes. I'm checking the podcast feed or anything like that to find the links to those things, like all of our social media accounts, our website, and that about wraps up this episode. So I want to say thank you again to Jordan for being here, my best pal and your best pal now. And we will be back soon with another episode. Please, if you have ideas for episodes, please,
Yes.
reach out,
Yes.
email us, comment on our videos, anything you can do to connect with us. And we would love to hear about more. I would love to hear about more like
We want some feedback too.
feedback too. Yes,
Yeah.
obviously, but also mysteries that are not really known. This one was an awesome one because it's not really known. So the common mysteries that everybody knows about, we're trying to not do those as much, but we really want to dig into the more unknown, more local mysteries, especially in other parts of the world. Like we said at the end of episode 1, different parts of the world are really interesting.
Yeah.
China, India, these parts of the world are giant areas.
Global.
Lots of interesting stories that all have their own mysteries and are really interesting to discuss. So that's about it. We hope to see you soon, and thank you for watching us. This has been the Mysterious Pals Show, and we will see you again soon.
Stay mysterious.